guys, as a disclaimer and warning for the video you are about to be watching, I am not using the appropriate respiratory gear that you're supposed to be using when you're doing painting. So just because I'm doing it without it does not mean it's safe for you. A lot of paints have hazardous chemicals that are inside of it, so you better wear your gear on it. Even though I lack to do it, there's no good excuse behind it, but that is me coming to you guys. So if you see me doing it without it, you should definitely wear it. I'm doing it out of the carelessness of myself. So don't follow me with the non-protective gear. Follow the way the paint runs. And the paint runs beautifully. So always wear your protective gear, wear your gloves, wear your face mask, whatever you need. I got them. I can't always wear them. That doesn't mean you guys can't wear them. Okay? So you always want to make sure that you're safe. That's it. So that's my disclaimer to the beginning of this video. So make sure you wear your mask, respiratory gear and stuff. You should be. I should be too. I have no good excuse against it. So always wear yours. Don't blame me if you got problems because of it. Thank you. Enjoy the video. Hey guys, so on this week's episode of the 2001 Dodge Ram Overhaul, we are working on the fenders. Now, as you guys might see, you may not see it, I'm going to use one of my lights to kind of expose it a little bit more. But you can kind of see that little dent creasing. You know, it's tough, but it's behind a bunch of metal on it on the inside, so it's really hard to try to pop it out. You can see the other one that's right there. Okay, and we got a little divot that's over here. See if you guys can see it. You can kind of see it right there, and then you see that one. So those are the only two that I see. I looked up and down this whole thing. That's number one of the issue on the way they shipped it. They literally shipped it in the box that you're looking at with nothing else in it other than bubble wrap that had a sticky side on it. Of course, look at the stupid the glue. It's stuck on the fender. Now you could scratch it up with your nail, but it's still a pain in the ass. So whenever you're painting anything, either you're painting it with a gun or you're painting it with rattle cans, the first thing you do is all your prep work. And the number one thing you're going to do is take 1600 grit scuff pad and you're going to scuff it and prep it for paint. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to scuff them both, get them prepped, try to get them as cleaned up as possible. Even though I'm going to be using actual Bondo to actually fill in those holes, just to give it a little bit in. And if you guys don't know how to use Bondo, there's thousands of people out there on the internet. You can Google or you can just watch me do it. I'm probably not going to be telling you how to do it because I've done it for so long that I get tired of talking over and over again about it, as that's about to fall. I tried to prop it up with some wood. It looks like I got to shim that one piece over. But anyway, whenever you're doing anything painting related, this fucking fly is pissing me off. From here on out, oh, it's probably because I got the light on. It's trying to fly into the light. From here on out, anything that I'm going to be... But from here on out, everything is going to be with gloves. No ifs, ands, or buts about it. So whenever you're painting anything, it's always gloves, gloves, gloves. No matter what. And you really want to scuff it up. You know, you can see it's got a little dirty, a little dusty. Some of it, which one? That one sat on the truck for a couple weeks. So I just took the tape off the hole for the thing, and you can see the little outline of dirt on it. So there's a lot of prep work before you paint it, and the last thing you want to do is touch it with bare hands, because you don't know what's on your hands. You could wash them, doesn't matter. Body has oil on. So from here on out, it's gloves, and it's just do the prep, take your time, and don't rush it, and you should have really good results. And I'm not just telling you, I'm also telling myself. So I'm going to scuff it up, and then I'm going to start with that Bondo, fill in the holes. The Bondo, usually I let it sit for 24 hours before I touch it. So Bondo usually goes on like a pinkish hue, and then it kind of turns white, and it gets hard. At that point, if you want to touch the Bondo with bare hands, that's fine. And then I'm going to hit it with my sander, or I'm going to hand sand it. One way or the other, until I can get that smooth curve back that it was. I'm not going to be using a lot of Bondo because it's shallow. If it was a big hole in it, I would have sent them back. But I saw the little dents, I knew I could fix them. It was annoying, being that they're almost $400 or $500 each. You know, you expect this shit to come packed properly, but this is what I get for not buying from, you know, Dodge, an OEM. I bought it from another company. I'll put the link in the description you guys can stay away from, honestly, because when they were both the way they're packed, I was just so pissed off. And the hood is no better. The hood's got different dents and dings in it and stuff from shipping. It was the same company. Complete horrible. I gave them a horrible review. I even contacted them, and they never contacted me. So you people suck, honestly. you know, made it fit. It fits. Everything fits. Everything lines up. All the holes line up. But you guys don't have the brain cells on how to ship shit. And I ordered a new grill, right, from LMC Truck, and that thing had so much bubble wrap and foam and packing in it. It was insane. Like, I even had trouble just getting all the packing material out just to get the grill out, which is sitting over there. That's still wrapped up with the extra layer of protection they had. And go figure, right? And something that costs 3 times as much, they just throw in a box and go, okay, here it is. Stupid. Alright guys, so I'm going to start doing that. You guys get to watch. Alright guys, so you can see how much fun that is, and my hand's killing me. Woo! Okay. Sweating, man. The fatter you are, the fatter you sweat. I mean, faster you sweat, whatever the fuck. So yeah, so now it's all nice and scuffed. I'm gonna do throw the degreaser on it. As the next step, we're just gonna do is you put it on, you wipe it down with a towel. Took the gloves off, my hands are sweating inside the gloves. Buy a lot of gloves, you're gonna go through them all. That was tough, my hands were starting to hurt, and trying to fucking scrub off the glue. And if the company is watching this video, you guys are fucking retarded for putting bubble wrap that has a sticky side on the metal that has to get prepped and painted, and then putting it in a box that is pathetic. I mean, a condom provides more protection than the box they stuck these suckers in. And you think I'm being funny? I'm not. I'm being dead ass serious. Like, you know, I went from one truck to another truck to another truck by the time I got to my house. You guys put it in like a box, like, hello. You know, Jesus Christ, man. Anyway, enough bitching. Let's get back to working. So I'm gonna wipe it down. I bought, it's from Duplicolor. It's grease and wax remover. So you want to use a wax and grease remover. Just towel wipe it down. I'm going to put a link in the description on how I learned how to do all this, because I never did any of this. I usually just hit it with my sander, you know, as you guys saw with the C10 build, and painted it. And now the C10 looks like I never painted it. So obviously prepping and primer is what you're really supposed to do, but you know, I don't paint, I just do other things. So this is the first time I'm actually doing it the right way. And I'll be watching the video and looking at different steps. But this was step number 1. I do have to do the Bondo, so that's a different step altogether. But I wanted to just scuff it down and put the wax and grease remover on it. And if you guys are asking me, yes, I'm going to do another coat after I sand the Bondo and stuff off as well, before I lay down the primer. I think there's another step after this. I think there's like a tack cloth involved and some wet and wild and shit. We'll go through all that when we touch that surface. But I'm going to start off with this and wipe that down. Alright guys, so the Bondo is ready for sanding. So I'm actually going to be using a scuff pad. That's 180 grit. Sometimes people call for like 80 grit, 60 grit. It's 180. I've used it several times, so it's probably a little less than 180 by now. All I'm going to really be doing is sanding off the Bondo that is on the parts of the fender I don't need it to be on. And just make sure that it contours to the rest of the angle that I'm trying to achieve. because it's on a curved section, you really want to kind of make sure that you have that curve when you're done. Sometimes during the sanding process, you actually end up sanding to a point where you actually start seeing that it's not flush like it's supposed to. It's a little wavy. Sometimes you need more Bondo for that. And that's really quickly. You mix it together, and then you let it sit for 20 minutes, and then you go back to it. What I usually do is a fingernail test. For temperatures over 70 degrees, you can do a fingernail test. It's 70 today, so that's why I'm actually filming today and why I'm trying to push to get this done today. Because if it's below 70, it can take a couple hours. You'll see with a lot of different Bondos, I was just looking at different Bondos I have. A lot of times they're pink. Mine are white because I forgot that the Bondo I bought actually is a white for doing primer. It's a little easier to hide. You can use pink as well. There's no difference in it. Just remember you're going to have to put more coats on it to get rid of that pink. Or brown, or depending on what color it looks like to you. So I'm going to sand those guys down. Once they're sanded and I'm actually happy with it, I'm either going to do one of two things. I'm either going to A, clean the surface with sprayway glass cleaner. Now you're like, why am I using glass cleaner on a metal Fender? There's a water-based cleaner, or you can use sprayway. It really doesn't matter. From sources that you guys will see in the link below in the description. He says sprayway glass cleaner. That's the first for me. So basically it's just removing any impurities, and then after that, if you see me using the sprayway, I'll throw it up in front of the camera. That means that we're going on to the next step. After the sprayway cleaner, we're going to go to a tack cloth. And a lot of times between different stuff I'm doing, I'm changing gloves. You guys obviously don't see because it's focused on the two Fenders. So right now, I'm going to put a pair of gloves on in case I got to touch the Fender, which I probably will be to get a little freaking elbow grease in there if I need to. Usually you really don't have to, using 180 grit. But like I said, this thing's probably down a couple grits or so. There's no chemicals and nothing else left over. It's just that I've been using this for like over 10 years, and it's probably down to probably about 80 grit or lower. So I'm going to do that really quick. I'm going to get that done, and then if everything goes according to plan, I'm going to show you the bottle. That means we're moving on to the glass cleaner. If you don't see the bottle, then you're obviously going to see me spray it. I'm going to do it with just a regular shop towel, the blue ones and stuff you get from Scott's. That's all you really need. You don't need anything fancy. You use a regular towel or a little detail towel, whatever you have on hand if you don't want to spend the extra bucks for that. I bought that when it was like really dirt cheap, and I bought like so many boxes worth of rolls that I'm not saying that I'm just blowing through them, but I might as well use them because I got so much of them right now. I look like a hoarder. I look like the people during COVID, with the box, with the toilet paper stacked to the ceiling. That's what I got of that shit because it was really dirt cheap at the time. And for some reason, people weren't buying it as paper towels. It was just, for whatever dumb reason, it was dirt cheap, so I bought shit tons of it because I use it a lot in the garage because it will last longer than a paper towel when you're like wiping your hand. Paper towel with oil and grease, it just shreds. And that stuff is just phenomenal. So anyway, enough of that jabbering. So we're going to do that. We're going to get that all nice and smooth. Then we'll spray it with the glass cleaner. We'll hit it with a tack cloth. And then after the tack cloth is done, which gets rid of all like the lint and miscellaneous crap that's on it, we're going to start doing the primer. Now the primer, I'm going to do 3 to 4 coats of primer on it. And between each coat of primer is 15 minutes. So a lot of times what I'm going to do is after I do one coat of primer, I'm going to stop the video. And then I'll do another coat of primer, and another coat of primer, and another coat of primer. So you might see me in weird different directions, or you might not make a difference at all. I try to keep the camera in one spot, but sometimes it just doesn't want to listen to me. So in case you guys see weird jostling around, it's because I stop it, because I don't want to just have 15 minutes of me just walking around in a circle of the garage that I got to edit out. Does that make any sense? Anybody wants to know what the t-shirt says? It says, unmasked, unvaccinated, Republican straight, how else can I piss you off today? In case anybody was wondering, you can buy it on Amazon. I'll probably put that in the link below if I remember to do so. Anyway guys, let's get to sanding. Alright guys, so we are back. We got the fenders coated, and of course during lighting and looking at it with my light, I noticed that the would have been the driver's side fender still had a couple more dents and things in it that I didn't see. That's where the primer comes into play. So when you put the primer on, no matter how many times you look at it with a light, like I was doing with the Bondo, you're still going to find imperfections. And this is a perfect time before you jump down into the painting level of doing the first coat of the color of the vehicle you want it to be. So I went over, I did Bondo over after I did a little quick sanding on it. Of course you didn't see the thicker layers of primer I did because my camera decided that it ran out of fucking storage, yada 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 yada. So I gave it a little quick sand with the scuff pad, get it down a little bit further down than I need to, that's what you're going to be using. My mother, I'm going to show her exactly what it takes to actually start sanding down some Bondo because she's never done that before. Have you?
Nope.
No, she's never asked. Alright, so...
Bondo version.
Yeah, Bondo version. Bondo over. Go away, fly. So, I'm going to show her before she starts doing that. We're going to start blasting some music. You guys are going to be listening to some music. She's going to see it. You're going to do a lot of squatting, which involves gloves because I'm going to be touching the primer
Is that
as well.
wet?
No, it's not wet. It's dry. That's why it's...
That one looks nice.
I know, that one looks nice. That one came out great. You wouldn't even know where the dent was.
That had a dent in it?
Yes, it did.
Oh.
You'll see that on the video. Sorry, I didn't mean to smack it. You'll see that on the video, but it needs another coat.
What's that hole for antenna?
That's for the antenna, yeah.
See? I'm learning.
So you're learning. That's it. That's all that matters. You gotta learn how you do this shit. Alright, and if you don't learn, you never know. And if you don't experience it, you'll never understand the aggravation behind it. Nevertheless. So you see right here, this see how this ridge,
right.
that ridge, that ridge, and that ridge, and this ridge, and that ridge, and that ridge, and this ridge. So this is the area right here we don't want to fuck up. This here we want to try to clean and smooth out, and then this has to get smoothed out. So this is where the involving of squatting comes into play, right? So I'm going to squat down over here. I'm going to show you. Can you see that? All right. So you're going to take this. So here's the curvature, right? Okay. This is the curve of it, and it's just. That's why I said you need the gloves to hold on to it. You don't want your skin to touch it, and you're just doing this. And as you move it back, you'll see that it needs a lot more done.
Right.
So sometimes what I'll do is I'm more worried about this area here than I'm worried about this. So this area I'll hit with my sander because I know how to use my sander a certain way. I tried to teach somebody and she don't live here no more. Not because she doesn't live here anymore. There's more than one reason why Amber Heard doesn't live here anymore. Nah, just kidding. I didn't ever dated Amber Heard. I didn't have billions of dollars. She likes to date rich guys. Anyway, nevertheless. So you got this right here. This is just regular Bondo. A little scuff, did nothing. Hence the terminal, like, basically Bondo is the equivalent to concrete. So you really can't just do a little bit and get rid of it. I'm pushing really hard. I'm getting rid of the primer as well, and I still did nothing.
So then now you have to reprime it?
Well, I gotta put primer over it. Yes, and you can see right here, there's a nice little deep scuff, so I gotta get in there as well. I'm gonna do that. Get in there with this and a couple other sanding tools. You get really dusty as fucking here. So like this, if you take this, I'm gonna do this one. Have you do this one here? And this is pretty easy. And all you're just doing is this motion over and 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 over again for like 8 minutes straight. And you can see as soon as you, don't walk away.
No.
As soon as you walk away, as soon as you wipe it away, you see all the little imperfections, right? That's why I said you want to wear gloves. Because you don't transfer any oils onto the paint. A lot of times I'll flip it over, I'll do this. Get that dust out of it. Then you hit it again. So, try to get somewhere. You want to start on that one? I'll start fucking with that one. we're gonna cut this part out. But obviously there's a little bit more to do. You see little scratches in there and stuff that I thought I got rid of. We'll get rid of that with the sanding after the fact. Alright guys, so I have the primer. It's sitting on the fenders. They've been sitting overnight. Next step that we're going to do now is, normally you would use a spray bottle for this, but I can't find one in my garage, so I just grabbed the container, I put some fresh water in it, right from the tap. And what we're going to do is we're just going to give it like a light little wet sanding at 600 grit. All we're doing is just removing. So when primer goes on, sometimes you'll notice it's like a little rough, it's a little uneven. It's got like little, it's like, almost feels like sandpaper. So what we're going to do is we're going to just get the sandpaper. We're going to try to wet it a little bit with the sandpaper. I used to have a sponge. Maybe actually I might use one of these that I have. I got these like little sponges and stuff here, so I'll probably just like wet it as I go along. It's not the best option, but it's the current option I have. So I'm going to kind of wet it as I go along. And as I wet it, I'm going to just sand it lightly and stuff to get it really smooth. You're not putting any pressure on it, you're just trying to make the surface nice and even before you do your base coat. So first we're going to wet sand it at 600 degrees. We're going to wet sand it at 600 grit, and then from there you're going to spray it with that sprayway that I have. I'm going to spray it and wipe it down. When I know it's 100% and it's nice and thoroughly dry, then we're going to start hitting it up with that base coat. And we're just going to go nice and even strokes, and once we start doing that, I'll let you know exactly the time limit you kind of want and how to do it properly. So I let it sit overnight just so I can kind of see what's going to happen over the course of some time. And you could see right now it actually kind of has like a dull finish to it, which is how it's going to look. And this is a good time to go over it. You can see like there's a little bit of streaking here and there. Different things kind of starting to pop out a little bit. Different colorations and stuff, like the Bondo. I could see a little bit on there. And I could see different spots where I didn't really focus a lot. Like over here, it's a little lighter in these two spots right here. So I can just go back over it. You know, we haven't clear coated it yet. And that's why a lot of times, what you want to do is when you're painting something like this, you don't want to jump into clear coat right away because it looks really good with the first couple layers of paint on it when it's still wet. But then what's going to happen to you is you're going to clear coat it and then it's going to start drying out. It's going to just start looking like shit. So it's always good to just kind of make sure that before you kind of jump down the road of clear coat that you do let this dry. Always let the paint dry before you start clear coat. Alright, so I'm going to add, so I'm going to do some quick layering. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go back and forth in an area like this. Very short sections. And then after that, I'm going to just dust it back and forth, and I'm going to let it dry. I'm going to see what we get. this a minute. So after I did that, now I'm going to brush it all in, try to incorporate it all into it, which is nice dusting on it. That's it. Now I'm going to let that sit there and dry. I don't want to do any more touching to that fender. And as you can see right now, here's a good opportunity to show you what a dry fender looks like compared to when you paint it. See how it's painted? Right now you think that looks great. I'm going to throw some clear coat on it. Let's keep that shine. It's going to run and it's going to look like shit. Because you're not going to get that gloss right off the bat from the clear coat. The clear coat, you're going to have to do the same thing that you're doing with the paint. Do your layers, you wait, do your layers, and wait. A lot of times you see on videos like this one, it looks like I did it in one day. Today is Saturday morning, yesterday was Friday. The airplane flies overhead. When I first started painting these fenders, people don't think I did them in one day, and I didn't. I think sometime during the week, it was either Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, or Thursday, I started sanding down the fenders. I did some Bondo on them. I did the primer on them. Friday afternoon from work, I did some more of the sanding. I did some primer. I did some more sanding. Then later on in the afternoon, I started laying down this base coat. And now it's Saturday morning at 6 o'clock in the morning. And I'm back to laying down some base coat. But I wanted it to sit because throughout the week I had 70 degrees and hot. Now I got 45 and 50 and it's raining out. So that's going to take a little while for the paint to cool, but it will adhere better when it's cooler temperatures. So what I do is I have my garage half open. And then once I'm done painting for this session, I'm going to close my garage down to where it's sitting on top of a spray can. So it still can vent out the fumes, but it also doesn't chill out the garage. And luckily, I have my oil burner that's in my garage, so some of the heat, even though it's behind a wall, will penetrate into the room. Anyway. So you saw how I did those short strokes? I'm going to do that short stroking again. I'll stick you over here now. Let's see if you guys can stay and see the little short stroking now. This will give you an idea. I'm trying to find a spot I could really stick you, but I don't really have anything that this thing's going to sit on top of. But I don't think anything's going to fall into the paint. So, let's... Alright, let's try you guys there. So you're going to see now also if you look at my tip before I start stroking it, you can see how my tip is a little wet. Let's see. See how wet it is? So what you want to do is you want to definitely wipe that off before you start. Because that little bit of wetness on it can instantly start spitting out some paint that's going to leave like a blob or a blotch, and that's going to be a lot thicker than the layer you're putting down. So it's always good to clean your tip once in a while before you start doing it again. Alright, did that. I'm going to shake it up. Always good to shake it in between sets. Okay, here we go. We're keeping a nice rhythm, same speed, same distance. Now because that was down there, I don't have to go back down there, but I can. Yeah, another short spot. Only overlapping it by ½ inch. As you get to curvatures like this, you kind of want to lift your can up a little and tilt the bottom back so you get constant spray coming out. But if you tilt the bottom of your can down too low, you're going to bang your paint. Bang what you're painting. You don't want to bang what you're painting. So very, very smart of where your can sits as you spray it. Alright, so now we got that down really nice. Now we're going to do that same thing again. We're going to dust it down, I'm going to dust it up, and we're going to let it sit, and we're going to see what happens. Full long stroke. Nice and quick. You don't need to be on top of it again. All you're doing right now is taking those layers that you put on, and you're just making sure you blend them together. That's really it. You can do it again. Coming up. Real quick. Just evening out that surface of paint. Your only goal right now. A lot of people ask me, why do you stop when you get to the end? So if this is the surface that I'm painting is my hand, right? I put my hand here and I'm going to spray, release, start spraying again, and then release. Why do you do that? Honestly, I've done that for years, and I've learned that from other people who did that. I know there's probably a science behind it. I know it has to do with the constant spraying of the paint. When you start and stop, it helps with pressure, because I think what happens is if you're constantly holding that can, I think you kind of start to lose focus on what you're doing a little bit too, as well. You know, you start kind of like zoning out because you're just doing this constant. I think it's a good way to start streaks, because when you spray, okay, it's like a fan blade. So as you start spraying, you start here and then you spray across. It keeps it that same squared spray pattern. But when you're holding the can and you go to spray this way, and then as you swing back, right now that spray pattern just literally made a curve. And if you don't leave your canvas, it's going to end up making a curve on it in the paint, and then you're going to constantly have a curve on the ends of your paint. Is the only thing I can really think of. I don't think it has anything to do with the cleaning of the nozzle. I don't know if it has anything to do with keeping the pressure constantly there in the can, but I feel like that has to do a little bit of it. Kind of keeps you focused, because at least when I know I got to stop, you know, I'll be spraying this way, I release, I spray across, and I release. And as I go to try to hit this section and this section, I try to stop in between, but sometimes I don't. So I'll spray here, and then I'll slowly grab the bottom lip of the metal here as I do it over there. Or sometimes I just spray it straight across and I don't release. When I'm getting down to that lower section of the wheel well. Of the fender and the wheel well, etc. So I think it really comes down to is just the technique of, you know, what the person is doing more than anything else. So yeah, so those are really shiny right now. We're gonna just let those sit, let them fade themselves out. Now I'm gonna make sure that the paint's even, and then if I'm happy with it, then we're gonna jump on it and we'll clear coat it within, you know, maybe a couple hours or tomorrow. And that's it. And definitely try not to rush stuff like this, because as soon as you start rushing, that paint starts running. It's a nightmare, because you know what happens once paint starts running. It's the worst thing. That's why I rather take my time painting something like this than rushing it to get it onto the truck. You know, I still got. It's like it's pointless to rush. It's raining all weekend long. You know, I'm not gonna get to this until probably, you know, my following weekend from now. So it's better just that you take your time with something like this. The quality is going to be a lot better. And that's a lot of times why body shops take a while to paint something, but they got it inside of a ventilated booth and etc. etc. So let's just let this dry and we'll pick it up from there. Alright, so it dried down. I let it sit for a nice little hour. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to do a nice little light coating with a little light dusting on it. Nothing much, just like we did before. And then we're going to just let it sit until it completely dries. And then we'll start doing that clear coat. So I just want to make sure that we hit all those certain spots that I really wanted to make sure I touched. Walking in the shit. Alright guys, so that's it. That's our last dusting now. I'm going to let it completely and solidly dry out. It might take a couple hours for this. Once it completely dries out, we have one more can of paint left. And then we're going to decide if we're going to do another coat on it, or we're going to jump over and start doing that clear coating on it. So let's just let that sit, completely dry out, and then we'll pick this back up. Alright guys, so I had it been drying for a while, and I came out, I wanted to look at a couple different things, and I wanted to talk to you guys about a couple different things as well. One of the things we're going to do is not touch the paint with our bare hands. It's number one on the list. So let's grab our handy dandy gloves and let's go down and diagnose what's going on with this paint. Alright, now we're at the stage right now where we're actually planning on the big C word. Big C word, and it's called clear coat. What you want to do right now is to test your paint. Now, a lot of people, they'll touch it with their bare hands. Remember, you're putting oils back on it. You don't want oils on that paint. You want your bare hands on it. Okay, I can pull up my sleeves with it. That's fine. What I'm trying to do right now is I want to see how that paint feels to the touch of these gloves. Okay. So now, what I'm feeling is what I like to call the tack. It's not 100% dry yet. Now, I know I know you guys aren't going to hear this, but when I touch my two fingers together, that's what you hear. But now listen to it as I touch the paint. Now, if you could hear that little kind of small, kind of like, sounds like somebody's got chewing gum in their mouth, that means the paint's not ready yet for clear coat. So I'm going to give it another 45 minutes to another hour. I want this to be dry as cardboard to the touch, because what the next thing that we're going to do is lightly hit it with some 600 grit sandpaper, very lightly, if it needs it. Sometimes when the base coat goes on, it has a rough texture to it. You don't want to transition that into your clear coat finish. So what we're going to do is we're going to lightly sand it, and then we're going to hit it with a tack cloth, and then we'll start doing our clear coat. And we're going to need at least 4 or 5 rounds of clear coat on it. But this has been sitting for a good 2 hours right now, and it's still tacky. And because it's been raining outside, and because of the humidity, it's like 45 degrees, almost 50 degrees outside, and it's probably very close to that in here. It's warmer in here than it is out there, but not by much. So it's going to take a little longer for that to dry. So we're going to just wait for this to thoroughly dry. We'll give it another 2 hours. I'm going to go out here, do a little tack, 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 see how it feels. And then when it's finally ready, I'm going to start filming. I'm going to start doing that sanding, tack cloth, and then the clear coat. And I'm going to see exactly how these fenders are going to come out looking. Because hopefully they come out looking pretty good. I mean, they look really good right now, don't get me wrong. You know, we got a couple layers into this, and they still have that shiny gloss that they didn't have earlier this morning. Earlier this morning, they had a very, very flat look to them, which was fine, which is normal. Even though there's metallic flakes in this paint, it still would be more of a flat color, and they're still really shiny right now. So that's because of the amount of layers that I put on it as well. It's going to constantly keep this shine that's going through it, which is good. It means that things are going to get nicer when they get painted. I mean, when they get clear coated. But now it's just that long waiting game. If it was 80 degrees outside today, I would say that I'd be clear coating already. And it's like 1 in the afternoon on a Saturday. And I would love to be in here doing some layers of clear coat, but because of the weather and the temperature, I can't. So I'm at a standstill. So it's basically editing videos, watching TV, and just pacing around my house. Because I can't even work on the military truck because it's raining. So, a couple hours. I'll try another hour or two and see what happens. I'll come out here and see what's going on. Alright guys, so in this rainy weather we are experiencing on our most bipolar weather state of America. We also like to call it New York. I have it at a little over 70 degrees in my garage and at 50-55 humidity. How did I manage that? I shut my garage door obviously during our wonderful rainstorm that we've had. And I turned on a space heater, which is very dangerous in a garage with, well, fumes. So we're going to shut that off right now. And we're going to reap the rewards of our new form heat in here. And what that means is we're going to get a little bit of clear coating done. Let's get the party started. It's nice and warm in here. It's never warm in here. So the biggest thing is why I keep doing that. Make sure temperature is 65 to 70. Humidity is less than 50%. It's a little in between, so it's not the end of the world. So now what we're going to do is we're going to start to spray our first coats of clear coat onto our painted surface. Like I said before, it's now, what is it, Sunday, it's almost 10 o'clock. It was a little cold and a little Wasn't tacky this morning, but I just didn't want to jump right into it right off the bat. I wanted to wake up a little bit and process on exactly what I want to do. And somehow I lost my fucking gloves. Yeah, I just moved 10 seconds ago. Got them. Alright. So, what I did is, I thought I was recording, but apparently I wasn't. But I had already went over it with a little bit of sandpaper. So what we do is we got our tack cloth here, and the tack cloth purpose is to clean up anything that's kind of sitting around on it. I was checking something. That's good. So what we're going to do is take our tack cloth. You want to run it over that surface. The idea is just to grab any of the impurities that might be on the paint, and lint, and spray dust that kind of hanged around from the last time you coated it. All that stuff will affect the paint's finish. Alright, so now we got that done. So what we're going to do now is we're going to do kind of like the quick coats that we were doing before, but a little more stretched out. So I'm going to do them in half. So just go back and forth in half of the fender, and then do that nice brush together and a little more combined in. Now, but the clear coat, you got to go quick. It's not something you can sit there and dilly-dally with. It's something you got to spray fast. So let's do it. As you see, I did a couple coats on it quick. Then at the end, I do the whole spray in. So first we cut it in half, then we go up to down, and then I dust the whole thing after the fact. And I gotta shake it because it's getting a little. Alright, so we're going to let that dry. It's only still one can of clear coat, so we're going to let this dry for a good 10, 15, 20 minutes. And then we'll get back and add another layer. Alright guys, so we're starting the next set, and obviously you can see I got a mask on myself. The last go around I was holding my breath a lot. But as a disclaimer, should always be wearing a mask of some sort, a good respirator. I have a respirator for painting. I can't find it right now. But these are, I was just wearing this thing too before I started doing this. These are from HDX. I bought these a long time ago, and these are a N95 respirator mask. Now, what makes these things different than the face masks they make you wear during COVID, these things sit on your face extremely tight. I got a double strap on them. And we're going to start laying down our other coat of clear coat, and I'm looking at my low battery power, so hopefully I can film this quick before the battery dies. Otherwise, you'll see the next step when I do another coat. I always like to shake it like such. Clean off your tip. Do a test spray. Make sure it's clear out of all pure spots. We'll hit it. That can's done. We're gonna get the next can up and running. And we'll do the other fender. Now, at this point, we're gonna give this now a good 2 hours to dry before we even do our next coat. For the clear coat, the same thing as we did before. I'm gonna let it vent out for a bit, and you can start hitting it up with some heat. The heat will help dry everything out so you get that nice finish. And if we don't like the finish, the next thing we could do is we got paint coming from Westwood. There's a clear coat that has an activator on it. So, if you don't like one coat, you can always get the other stuff. Alright guys, so that is our second/third coat of clear coat. Okay? So I like to wipe the tip, spray at the bottom of the can, and let it sit like such. We'll let that dry for 2 hours before we jump back in and see what it looks like. Alright guys, so I'm going to end the episode right here. They've been sitting for a good 2 to 3 hours, and honestly, I'm happy the way they have come out with the clear coat on it. Paint is amazing on it. A lot of steps, a lot of prep, and I'm glad I went down the line of watching videos on how to do it. The company is called Scratches Happen. Is it something you'd want to paint your whole vehicle in? It's hard to say no to. I would say if you're going to do that, I would say use a gun and gallons. The rattle cans are going to be a pain in the butt. It's like you're going to be a lot of money into it. The prep work behind it is definitely heavy, it's definitely extensive, and you definitely want to take your time. It's been a long process. I'm going to be doing the same thing with the tailgate, so I got some more paint coming, so you guys will see that probably in another episode or so. I don't know when I'm going to install them yet. One of the things it does say is you want to wait like a good 2 or 3 days before you start like hitting it with a wheel. So I'm going to give it definitely a good week before I do anything to them. So I'm just going to let them sit the way they are. The longer you sit, the better it's going to harden, and so on and so forth. So I'm just going to show you guys what they look like, listen to some music, and you tell me what you think. Honestly, I say this came out way better than I ever imagined.